Hey, I'm Brad. Welcome back to Overkill Reviews for my third week in a row. It's a miracle that I made it here because I actually just finished cleaning the monster out of my beard from last week's review. So be sure to subscribe to our channel because apparently I'm always here and I'm always doing weird shit. This week, we've got one of the most hit and miss bands in all of metal. It's been a while since I've done a review that wasn't death metal, but this week, I've got one. It's the new album from Trivium, The Sin and the Sentence, out today on Roadrunner Records. Trivium are a metal band from Orlando who formed in the late 90s when Matt Heafy wasn't even a teenager yet. When I was 12, I was playing Mario Kart. I think I got a GameCube when I was 12. They released their debut album, Ember to Inferno, in 2003, but it was with their 2005 release, Ascendancy, that they really broke through, when Heafy was only 19. The Sin and the Sentence is their 8th studio album. Matt Heafy is now 31, meaning he's only 4 years older than me and has released 8 studio albums. Me? I'm still playing Mario Kart. Trivium is a really hard band to classify. Throughout those 8 albums, they've jumped styles a bunch. So let's see where this one falls. To me, Trivium's always been a hit and miss band. So let's start with one of the definite hits.
A dead road, a dark sun, now it's beyond oblivion. A dead road, a dark sun, now it's beyond oblivion.
This track actually starts out super heavy and took me by surprise when I first heard it because I wasn't expecting that after Silence in the Snow, which had no screaming on it at all. I really wanted to play the chorus because it's anthemic and fits really well with Heafy's voice. But almost as if the band wanted to remind you that they're still heavy, they don't even make it through the whole chorus, instead screaming the last line and going into that heavy riff that they started out with. But believe it or not, that's not even the heaviest part of the song.
Beyond oblivion. Beyond oblivion, beyond oblivion.
Sorry I psyched you out there for a bit. I know, you were expecting the heavy part of the song, but I had to start out with this kind of droning part. And no, I'm not talking about the band Sun. Those guys. Remember how I said the chorus fit Heafy's voice? Well, this is a poor use of his voice. They just keep repeating beyond oblivion. And instead of being anthemic, it just kind of becomes a drawl. But whatever. Let's get to the part that I really want to talk about. And is it really any surprise to anybody that I want to talk about the blast beat? Probably not. Look, I'm not saying that these guys are black metal, but this is pretty much as close as they get. It's got that same Gorguts-esque discordance that the Black Dahlia Murder had and surprised me when I reviewed them a couple weeks ago. I know people are probably going to get really mad at me for comparing Trivium to Gorguts, and I'm not saying that, but it's almost as if they took that influence and filtered it through their catchier, more mainstream sound. Overall, this song was definitely a pleasant surprise. Well, fuck off with your blue shell. I'm actually going to play 3 clips from this next song and use it as something of a case study of what the album succeeds at and where it fails. The song is called Betrayer.
I see betrayer. Swear I've given you so much, naysayer.
What a buzzkill. The drums come in and it almost sounds like it's gonna go heavy again. Nope, you get super thin trem picking that almost feels like the band are trying to appeal to the deaf-heaven crowd. And the riff just feels phoned in. For some reason, it sounds like the bass comes in a split second before the guitar, and it just feels like a mistake. Sorry, bud, you missed your cue. Oh yeah, and with the thin production on that trem-picking guitar riff, the song actually sounds fuller when they're just doing drum and bass, which it shouldn't because there are less instruments playing. I'm not 100% sold on the sparse vocals on this build-up, but I'll take it over that opening riff. I really don't like that opening riff, could you tell? Anyway, that was a lot to unpack, so let's get to the chorus. That first lick is some solid metalcore riffing that Trivium built their career on. And the chorus starts out solid enough, but the third time he says, "I," it almost sounds like he was trying to hit a note and fell flat and just didn't retrack it for whatever reason. I feel like this song could have been fixed by punching in a few parts, but the vocals just kind of peter out, and then the second half of the chorus is just kind of a drag. It's unfortunate because it seemed like, the song was redeeming itself. But I'm not going to give up on this track yet. One more clip in which I'm going to re-examine that opening trem pick riff with 3 different iterations of it to prove that it might not always be a failure. That first version of the riff is happy, similar to the opening, but the addition of the vocals prevent it from being too thin and bland. After the scream, however, the riff really shines, oddly enough, because they made it a little bit darker. Though that's not really a huge surprise given that this kind of riff is prominent in the dark and dour black metal sound. Oh, and then they just go back into the opening riff, and after those 2 salvaged iterations of the riff, this one just feels even lamer. Anyway, 3 clips. I've had enough of this song. You probably have too. So let's move on. This last song that I'm going to talk about has one of my favorite parts on the album. This is called Sever the Hand. At the start of that clip, you heard the end of a good solo, which is not really a surprise for anyone who's been following the band because that's always been one of their strong suits. They've always been good at that. That thrash riff is pretty cool, but again, not really a huge surprise given that the Crusade was essentially Metallica light. Finally, we get to the part that I was talking about. That second permutation of the thrash riff with the palm mutes and the double bass underneath is, quite frankly, for Trivium, fucking brutal. It sounds like they're trying to reach the depths of Meshuggah with a groove, although, yeah, it's not as technical, but I'm sure people are going to get mad at me in the comments over that one too, comparing Trivium to Meshuggah, but I mean, them's the breaks. Quite frankly, there's a lot going on with this album. So, parts that I didn't show you. There's a Stone Sour-esque chorus, there's a chugging opening that syncopates like a nu metal part, there's a lot of rock influences, and more. Remarkably, given all that, the album doesn't feel like a total mess. In fact, it's fairly well put together. It flows all right, but it drags. The one thing this album needs is a good edit. There are just parts that don't need to be here, and when your songs are like pushing 5-6 minutes, and you're playing this more mainstream style of metal, you should be shooting for that radio edit, that 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 4.5 if you're feeling dangerous. The standout on this album is the new drummer, Alex Bent, who adds a technical edge, some blast beats. It's all over the place. Where did he learn to play like that? Well, he's also in Brain Drill, among others, so that gives you the idea. As always, Trivium are at their best when Matt and Corey's guitars are dueling. Quite frankly, I think they'd make a really good double dash team.
Here we go.
I'm glad that Heafy's screaming again because the last album's overdependence on his singing kind of got really annoying. And while his voice isn't always hitting where I want it to, overall, it's pretty good. I'm gonna reiterate myself here and say that Trivium are a very hit and miss band. The first album, Embers to Inferno, was the embryo from which the melodic metalcore masterpiece, Ascendancy, was born. And then they followed it up with that Metallica light album, The Crusade, which was pretty much a total dud. After that, they injected some of Heafy's Japanese roots into Shogun and came up with like a pretty unique sound, which I've never understood why they ditched after that. In Waves went back to more of their earlier metalcore sound, and it wasn't awful, but it also wasn't good. And then for some reason, they got the dude from Disturbed with the fucking, to produce the next one, Vengeance, and it pretty much sounds how you would imagine that dude producing a metalcore album to sound. And all the clean singing on the last one resulted in an album that was just too polished. The Silence in the Snow, kind of wish it stayed silent. But this one, it's a hit. Not a bullseye like Ascendancy and Shogun, but they're getting some points. It's not a complete write-off. I just hope, for once in their career, that they keep pushing on the sound they've established and perfect that, rather than just pulling a 180 and deciding that they're a complete death metal band now. Actually, maybe I'd like that better. For now, they made a solid album, probably their best since Shogun, and I'm giving it 3 out of 5 skulls on Overkill Reviews. While I've got you here, please hit the subscribe button, and maybe leave me a comment telling me what a dumbass I am for comparing this band to Meshuggah or Gorguts. I'm not sorry. And I'm still playing Mario Kart, although I don't have a Nintendo Switch yet. So 71.
Nintendo, give me free stuff.